Hi, I am Lydia, and I am the founder of Questions Authority Coaching, now known as LL Coaching. And I am an energy coach, essentially. So today, just get comfy, grab your favorite beverage. For me, I got this like dry spot in the back of my throat. So I got hot water with honey and lemon, and of course, just water here, so I don't end up coughing throughout the whole video. But I hope you'll cozy in and join me for a little conversation on my evolution. Um, what makes me me, or maybe better said, who is Lydia, and also why I named my business Questions Authority Coaching, and then why I transitioned it to LL Coaching. So uh, buckle in. I was born and raised in Lawrence, Kansas, which is a university town. The University of Kansas is there. So grew up in a pretty decent sized town with a wide variety of political views expressed and a wide variety of just people. There was just all kinds of different people. And give me just a moment. I don't think I put my phone on silent. So before that gets all disruptive, we're just going to silence that. Um, I was raised in a Christian household, with my mom, my dad, brother, younger brother, and me. And my mom, for the longest time, did not want me. Um, and honestly, I don't think she had the capacity to want or love a child, and that's okay. She endured way too much as a kid herself, and so she tried her best to not have kids and ended up having two, and I was the first, and it it was I grew up with a good family, and I grew up with a traumatized family. It is what it is. But I learned very early on, between just the capacity of what my parents could handle and the church that I was raised in, that my curiosity and questions were not welcome. Um, they were better left to remain inside. I can have my own inner dialogue as much as I want, just never speak these questions out loud to the adults and authority figures around me, because they didn't like it when this very small thing over here was asking them questions that they didn't have answers to, or they felt challenged their authority in any way. And so I think that's, to some extent, pretty common story for most people. Honestly, I think a lot of us were silenced in some way, um, from a pretty young age, because it's how our parents were raised too. Our parents were often silenced because it's oftentimes so much easier to just say, accept authority, do what I told you to do because I told you to do it, you know, or believe that Jesus is full of unconditional love, but that you're going to go to hell if you do X, Y, or Z. Like there was, there were certain things that just didn't quite sit with me, right? That I just learned to stuff down deep. And it, and I learned how to be a people pleaser because when you're born to a mom who doesn't want you and to a church who recognizes that you are going to cause a lot of trouble if you don't start playing the game. I tried to start playing the game. I tried to do everything I could to be the perfect little girl, the perfect little Christian, and to not make waves and to earn the approval and love of the people who were my authority figures in any kind of sense. And so, however that might appear in your life, maybe you can see some similarities in yours, and maybe you're blessed that you did not feel the need to do that. I don't know. But I distinctly remember, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I distinctly remember as a high school student uh, walking by a gas station. Maybe I was at the gas station. I don't remember that part, but I remember watching this car pull out of the gas station parking lot, and on its bumper was the sticker that said question authority. And again, I grew up in a university town in the 90s where everyone's car, it seemed, was plastered with bumper stickers. And yet, this was the first time I had ever seen that bumper sticker. Question authority. Just white sticker with black block lettering. Question authority. Oh, and that has always stuck with me because I'm like, yes. It's just like my inner dialogue. Because again, by this time, I'm pretty damn smart. I know that I can't speak this shit out loud or all hell will break loose upon me. But I'm like, yes, we're supposed to question authority. We're supposed to be curious. We're supposed to wonder, why do we do things the way that we do? Should we still be doing them this way? Is there something else there that we're not being told? And I want to make this clear that questioning authority does not automatically equate to blaming authority. Okay. Um, I'll get into a little bit of that later, I think. I'm going to hold on a little more of that explanation until a little later in this conversation, but just know that questioning authority is not the same thing as blaming authority. Um, so anyway, um, up until this point, I had really learned how to be as big of a people pleaser as I could. But it also like still always grated on me. And I always had these really, really great intuitive gifts, but I wasn't around anyone who could like tell me these are what they are, their gifts, their, use them, trust them, um, develop them. And so I actually learned to distrust uh, my intuition, my gifts, uh, my sense of energy. Like the only thing that I used my energetic gifts for were to figure out what the energy was of the people around me and then try to match that or try to change it. Like if they were in a bad mood, then I would try to safely bring them into a better mood. Again, people pleasing, right? Um, oh, and just so you know, I'm filming this on my iPad, and the camera, as you can see, shifts in and out, and it keeps moving. So I'd be very interested in the comments. If let me know what this is like for you, if it's a little too ooh or not, so I can make adjustments for any future conversations. But anyway, this it seemed like all of the external environments, society, authorities, whatever you might want to call it, everything external to me, which I was very tuned into because, that's what we're trained to do as babies. We are born speaking the language of energy. Um, but no one else speaks that language anymore because we all the adults have been trained to speak in words and use language um and so as babies we are looking for these cues of how to be in the world, and we learn very quickly as kids and infants even that we need to learn how to speak in words to express ourselves, but we also learn simultaneously that it is not okay to express certain things because if that makes someone else uncomfortable, like we're angry, we're fed up with something, we're sad, and it as kids it doesn't matter why, and as adults it doesn't matter why, but we're so entrained that it does matter why. Okay, sorry. um, Sometimes I say things and I'm like, but it doesn't. And then I end up in this kind of loop where you're probably wondering, what the hell is she trying to say? So let me back up. Um, as kids, we learn very quickly that certain emotions are okay, certain emotions are not okay. Um, and language is good, energy is bad. And no one is saying this stuff out loud normally, right? These are just the things because we are born knowing how to sense energy and speak energy. Stop it, camera. Goodness. Uh, Making me dizzy over here. Uh, it's what we pick up. Let me see. Does that help? So, so by the time that we're often in our teenage years and adult years, unless we're around people who are very spiritual and still kind of want to cultivate those gifts and use those gifts, we no longer have that language essentially within us, that energetic language, that ability to recognize that intuition is our energy field sensing something beyond our physical senses. And it's still incredibly valid and incredibly true, but we're taught scientific method and has to be able to be seen or measured or touched, smelled, tasted. If it doesn't fit any of these, then it must not actually be valid, right? Um, and fortunately, science is starting to catch up with all of this, and it is starting to recognize that there is more beyond those five senses in our physical body, and that's wonderful. But again, different conversation. um so having learned to kind of just distrust everything and even distrust my body. Um, and by distrust my body, I didn't realize that I was distrusting my body, but I thought I was listening to my body. And now that I actually know, ooh, no, I was not. And I can see this pattern repeated in so many other lives around me. And I know, like, my mom always said, you got to listen to your body. You got to listen to your body. I'm like, okay. I don't think at that point in time she knew either, really, what that meant. And if nothing else, she certainly didn't have the capacity to be able to teach me what that actually meant or felt like or looked like. And then out of high school, I joined the Navy. And for any of you who have been in any of the military branches, um, you know that you really can't do what your body is asking you to do most of the time, because if you did that, you would be directly disobeying orders that were lawful and that you had to carry out to fulfill the mission. I mean, no one's body is saying, yes, it is a fantastic idea to work for 36 hours before you get a 2 hour nap and have to go back to work. No, no, our bodies, no one's body actually wants this. No one's body is saying, that's a fantastic idea. I'm totally down for that. That totally is in my best interest and wellness. Um, so so when I say I learned to distrust my body, it means that I essentially learned to ignore it and feel like when it was trying to shout at me that something was wrong, when I got sick or I had migraines. I have chronic migraine, and I that started at age 16. So my body's been trying to tell me for a very long time that I wasn't listening to it. I wasn't paying attention to my energy, and I should have been. And so now I'm working through all of that, which is really wonderful. But I didn't really get that or start to understand how deeply I was ignoring and distrusting my body until January 2022. I got COVID. And then it turned into long COVID. I was never hospitalized, but I definitely had a pretty severe case of COVID. Um, I never lost my sense of smell, which a lot of people did with COVID, especially the more severe cases. But most everything else, I was in a really bad spot. And the irony of this is, after being in the Navy, when I got out, I went to nursing school and I became a nurse. And when I got COVID, I was working as the chair of an undergraduate department of nursing at a local university here in Minnesota. And so I'm supposed to be a nursing leader who is exemplifying health and healthy practices and appropriately managing stress and just check whatever boxes you off your list that you think healthcare practitioners are supposed to be doing, since they're the ones who are supposed to be keeping us healthy and helping us return to health, right? And I was not listening to my body, it turns out. I thought I was. I was exercising regularly. I was eating pretty healthily. I was trying to get enough sleep. And I was getting 7 to 8 hours a night most nights, sometimes more. No, that should have been it, right? Like that should be enough based on what society tells us. Like that's what you're supposed to do, right? Do these things, and you can have a successful career. And uh, it wasn't it for me. Um, so my body got tired of, you know, me ignoring it, and it literally shut me down. I would be so weak, and my nervous system would be so frayed and fried that there were weeks where about all I could manage was to sit on the couch or lay in my bed. I couldn't read a book. That was too much stimulation. I couldn't listen to music. That was too much stimulation. I couldn't watch a movie or a TV show. That was too much stimulation. I could just sit there. And I felt so trapped, so betrayed by my body. And slowly I got better. Eventually, I was able to return to work 3 or 4 hours a day, which ultimately, those 3 or 4 hours a day of hardly being productive at all, to be entirely honest. And I'd go home and just be done. Like I couldn't do anything else the rest of the day. Like that was it. Um, and And then the school year ended. I resigned my position as chair with the intent of coming back the following fall as just teaching, just being a professor again, just teaching nursing, um, which still stressful, but not nearly the same level of responsibility, and stress. And I don't think I was even a week out from the end of the semester into my summer break, and I had started seeing a therapist because I felt betrayed by my body. Like I had never experienced such physical disability in my life. I had no idea how to move forward. I was definitely battling depression at that point. And as that semester had wrapped up and I started thinking ahead to, like, all right, am I going to be able to come back full time or part time? If I come back part time, what classes can I teach and still, like, you know, be okay and not, kill myself all over again? And every time I started to think about it, my body had this visceral reaction, just panic, just, oh my God, I can't even fathom going back. And so I was chatting with my therapist, and I was like, I keep having these like panic attacks when I think about going back to this job, but I can't trust and all I want to do is quit completely, but I can't trust my body and my mind. And he just stopped me and he's like, why? Why why can't you trust what your body and your mind are telling you. That stopped me in my tracks. And I am so grateful to that man for asking me that question, for challenging my deeply held belief that I couldn't trust my own self based on what nothing internally ever told me to not trust myself. It was always external voices that told me I couldn't trust myself. So that conversation absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. And yeah, I was on that path, but there are certain moments that I can, and I think a lot of us can pick out that were distinctly, oh, like light bulb moments, if you will. Those moments that caused those like aha moments. And I chatted about it with my husband and I quit my job. And I allowed myself to start trusting my body again, to start to really listen to it. And I started developing a really good relationship with me. For the first time in my life, I started to understand what my body was telling me when it felt tired or dizzy, or it had different aches or pains, or started to get a migraine, or my stomach twisted into knots. I started to understand that because, again, my body doesn't speak in words. And if you remember from earlier in the conversation, that's the only kind of language we are taught is valid from a very young age. And so I was relearning my mother tongue, if you will, my native tongue, my native language of energy. And that's what my body speaks. That's what your body speaks. And so if you don't know how to speak in energy, then of course you're gonna miss it. Of course you're gonna think you're listening to it and then get it wrong. Like, duh, that's how this works. It's okay. Um, so I think I've probably covered all that pretty well at this point, right? So um as I'm trusting my body and not working and just allowing it time to truly rest for the first time ever in its life, I start really feeling what I now know was like my soul stirring and all of this stuff. And I was really starting to feel like I needed to give voice to all of those times that I didn't give voice to my curiosity, to those times when I'm like, hey, why are you saying this but doing this? Or why are we taught to believe this, but that's not actually what's happening? Like all of those times where things just weren't adding up, weren't making sense. And so I named my blog Questions Authority. And I started a website, which is no longer around. So I'm not going to tell you what it is. 'Cause I don't want you to go look it up and be like, this is not her. If anyone even has that website, to be honest. Uh, but my blog was called Questions Authority, and it allowed me to start voicing in a public arena that, granted, very few people actually read. Like, I was out there, um, but it's not like I suddenly took off in popularity and had a ton of people reading it. I had a handful of people reading it. And I just kind of shared stories of my life, of times when I'm like, this wasn't right. This wasn't real or true, or this was damaging and traumatic, and there's a better way. I think was kind of what was starting to come out, and I didn't really understand it at that point, but then I started feeling well enough, and I was like, let me try nursing again. I should probably get a job at this point. We're going to try this again. Because again, I'm really early on into this whole exploring my body. Like, I thought I was just reconnecting to my body. I didn't really understand at that point that I was also reconnecting to my soul. And sorry, I got my little notes here so I stay on track a little bit better. Otherwise, I wander even more than I already do with my notes. So I'm like, I'll do staff nursing. So I'm going to go back into staff nursing. I work a shift. I work with patients. I go home. I don't have the stress of bringing home work with me as I did when I was teaching nursing or the chair of that department. Like, I limited time engagement. I work my 8 or 12 hour shift. I go home. I get to rest. Oh, and I should be able to do a 0.75, which, for those of you who don't understand what that means, that's a 0.75 is out of a 2 week pay period. You have 80 hours is a 1.0, a full time. And a 0.75 is 3/4 of that. And I think that's 64 hours, but right now, I don't trust my math. Maybe it was just 60 hours and 60 hours. I did 60 hours. There we go. um, yeah. Sometimes my brain don't want to compute stuff. So I was like, I can do 60 hours in 2 weeks. I took a 12-hour shift job, 60 hours, that's 5 shifts in 14 days. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Like, I can totally do this. And I had been working up my stamina. I had been helping my husband at the distillery. He's a co-owner and working weekends there. And so I was used to being on my feet again for like 9 to 10 hours a day and working with people and interacting with people. Like, I was like, I can do this. This should be all right. I should be able to do this. So I took this job. Y'all, I lasted 6 weeks. And if I remember right, the first 2 weeks really weren't even hands-on. It was like computer training. Oh my God. And the last shift that I worked before I said, nope, this is definitely not for me. I had to grab a walker out of the supply closet on the unit I was working to be able to walk because my body was telling me, shouting at me, this is not okay. This is not your path. And so I got done with that shift today. Miraculously, no one got hurt. That was that was the most unsafe I have ever been in my practice, and it scared the ever living daylights out of me. And I'm so grateful to the nurses who were on shift with me, who were a huge help. Um, Excuse me while I just have a moment. Oof. Um, yeah, that was really emotional, and I can feel that coming up now. And I think part of that is because right now, I get to repeat a similar cycle, but I get to redo it fully conscious. Well, conscious. I'm more conscious. I'm more awake. I'm more in touch with my soul and my energy. And so I I'm recovering from COVID for a second time right now, and I'm feeling that long COVID setting in, and I'm getting to kind of go back through and learn the lessons that I didn't get that first time through, and grow and expand even more than I thought I'd ever be able to do. And the amount that I've grown and expanded since getting COVID the first time in 2022 is it's more than I ever thought I'd be able to do. And it's really incredible. And it's also really scary to be doing this again. So, didn't think this was going to happen on this conversation today, but I guess it is. Oh, so thank you for being here and witnessing this with me. So, quit nursing. Um, and that was that was the middle of January of 23. And I about a year out from when I first found out I had COVID. And to be fair, at that point I was technically on a leave of absence with my employer, where I had, I think, 3 months to recover and to find maybe a different job within the company, to be able to stay employed there. And so I don't even know how it worked, but I still got some paychecks for another like 6 weeks or something. Like it was, I don't know, because I certainly hadn't been there long enough to be eligible for like short-term disability or anything. But I At first I was looking most days to see what was posted at the organization, what might be a good fit for me, what might be I'd be able to do. Because at that point I was like, It's got to be a desk job, and it can't be in leadership because I can't take it home with me." Um, and I just I wasn't finding anything that was low enough hours, because I was like, 20 hours might be too much for me at this point. Like maybe 16 hours would be good. Like, can I do 2 8-hour days or a few 4-hour shifts a week? at a desk job. And of course, no one has something that small in an organization. It's not really cost efficient, honestly, to hire people like that. And so I wasn't finding anything, and I was back to doing a lot of soul searching and trying to really listen to my body and figure out what was going on. And I remembered back to a conversation I had had with an interim nurse manager for a unit that I was working on before I even went teaching. And it took me back to, what was it about nursing that I really loved? And what I really figured out that I loved was teaching, but not like when I had to assign homework and grade it like that. Not that part, but sharing my wisdom and showing people different options and coaching people and allowing them to come up with their own answers and their own solutions. Those were the parts of nursing that I loved. And so I found a coaching program. I was like, holistic life coaching, that sounds doable. That sounds like something that I can do myself. It'll draw on all of my experience and my degrees, so I won't feel like it was a total waste to go and get my doctorate. I mean, for Pete's sake, I'm over here not working in nursing and I have a doctorate in nursing practice. It's, ah, and so the coaching program I found, in case you do want to look it up, is Wisdom of the Whole, WHOLE. Linda Bark is a nurse who founded it, and she's one of the original nurse coaches. And she's incredible. And the instructors I had in this program, also absolutely incredible. And the holistic practices and tools and techniques used in this program, and that I learned how to use as a coach, definitely tapped into energy work and tapping into wisdom inside of the individual, not external. So, as a coach, I don't find the answers for you. I don't tell you what you should do. I'm not giving you advice when I am in the coaching role, right? I am helping you tap into your own energy, your own body, your own soul to come up with your answers, because what works for me or what's true for me isn't necessarily true for you. And so now, in my role as an energy coach, I kind of combine the teaching and the coaching. And so that's that's anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I take this holistic life coaching training and I take my blog, Questions Authority, and I turn it into Questions Authority coaching, because what I started out, kind of my purpose in my business, still remains true today. I might be wording it a little differently. And I've certainly expanded into what it means more, but it was always to help you connect to yourself, your body, and your soul, and to kind of drop out of the mind, because the mind is where we live. We just live in this mental realm. We think that's normal and that's right. And it's certainly common. And it's what we're all taught to do. Uh, and so it's not wrong, but it means that you don't actually get to know you. You get to know these thoughts running through your head that you think are you. And it's anyway. And my premise with the questions authority coaching was really, let's start questioning what we've been taught and told and what we've believed and what we accept as truth that may or may not actually be truth. Um, let's start questioning that and getting to know ourselves and our own innate wisdom, our souls, really, is what I'm saying. You get to know your soul. And so that's what I set out to do with questions authority coaching. And what I found with that is that every time I worked with a client, I was like two steps ahead of where they were. And I love that beautiful synchronicity of, oh, I just dealt with this. And now I have a client who's coming to deal with the same thing, essentially, the same root issue. I can definitely help with this because I have, the wisdom that I gained coming out of it, but also the work that I did to help me come to my answers. I can help guide them through that work for themselves. And that's one of the big reasons that I just love coaching and what I do. No matter how successful I ever am at it, I don't care. I get to do what I love because what I love to do is help you find you. I'm not trying to get you to trust me or believe everything I say is true. What I'm trying to get you to do is to trust you and to get to know you so that you can then have the discernment to determine everything, all these signals that you receive on a daily basis from the external environment, what is true in that and what is absolute poppycock. and I love that. And so I've really gone through and learned so much. I learned kind of the basics of shamanism, which was really kind of my first foray into the um, energetic, the spiritual realm. And I guess I had always considered myself spiritual after I left Christianity, simply because I still very firmly believe that there's a higher power, there's something else out there, a God, or the God, I suppose. And I just never really knew what to do about it, if that makes sense. Because I had been so traumatized by the religion I grew up in and the churches I grew up in that I did not consider myself, and I don't consider myself a Christian anymore. And I know that not everyone has experienced that same trauma, and that same deep manipulation and patterning and programming. And I'm so grateful for that because there are a lot of Christians and churches out there doing a lot of good. And thank God for that. Because what I grew up with was not good. Um, but taking that introduction to shamanism course that I took while I was taking my holistic life coaching certification program, I that that felt like a big part of coming home. It was like, oh man, like I took to it like a fish takes the water. It was incredible. And then that following January, February of this year, I took a Reiki level 1 and 2 practitioners course, and I just kept drawing parallels between shamanism and Reiki and what I've been learning and all of the energy work that I've been doing on myself and trying to figure out all of that stuff. And even from all of that, I've really evolved because a lot of shamanism and Reiki still, from what I've experienced, so this may not be your experience if you've experienced either of these. So I just want to make sure that I'm very clear on this. I'm not trying to make a blanket statement about all shamanic practices or Reiki practices, but a lot of that was still giving my power away to a guide, a power animal, spirit animal, or even my ancestors or other spirit guides. And rather than trusting myself and my soul first. And so, what I've been doing the last several months is really coming back home to me more and more and more. And that has meant reclaiming my power, reclaiming myself, reclaiming my name, who I am. And not that my name makes me who I am. I make my name. But I am Lydia L. And this journey has been about coming into a radical level of personal responsibility for creating my world. Uh, we are all incredibly powerful beings. And my goodness, we can create amazing things. And I have created some really amazing things in my life. And I have created some really shitty things in my life. And that's how powerful I am. I get to create my reality. And that coming to understand that I'm, to be honest, I'm still coming to understand that there's like I've gone in every time I think I'm like, oh my God, I can't get any deeper. I go deeper. And so I just want you, if you're at the beginning of your journey, just know that there's always more. And sometimes that can be really frightening because there's always more. You think you healed everything, there's always more. But you think you've experienced as good as it can get? No, honey, there's always more. That's what keeps me going. I absolutely love growing and expanding. And it is not easy. And it does not always feel amazing, but it is always worth it. And so evolution that I've really been going through that's really been starting to take off at breakneck speed since getting COVID 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I guess, um, has really led me to really take a deeper ownership of me, who I am, what I am doing, what I say, how I respond, and even how I react. Like those quick gut, like didn't even think about it. I just said or responded. And normally I'm looking back at those reactions and going, ooh, could have handled that one better. And so taking responsibility for that, taking responsibility for the programming that I've internalized. Yes, it was put there by someone else, but unconsciously, yes, but still, I allowed it to be put there. And so now I get to reclaim my power and undo that programming. I don't have to wait for the person or the thing or the society, the world to undo it. I get to undo it. And so that's kind of what I mean by that radical level of personal responsibility. And also, again, back to what I said earlier about questioning authority is not about blaming. Like, I'm not going to blame the world for putting all this programming or training me how to live up here and not down here. Everyone learned how to do it. That's the way this world is designed. Now we get to make the choice as conscious individuals to choose something else. And that's what I'm doing for myself. And that's what I'm here to support you in doing. If you want or need that support, that's what my business is about. And that's honestly, that's why I changed my business name from Questions Authority Coaching, which technically legally I still have that name, Questions Authority Coaching. Um, but I'm now going by LL Coaching because, again, I'm reclaiming ownership of me. I'm stepping up into that next level of responsibility. And my name, I am Lydia Lazara. I am LL Coaching. This is me. This is who I am. And I'm not going to be for everyone. If you made it to the end of this video, amazing. Congratulations. Maybe I am for you. Um, I sure hope so if you made it to the end of this video, because I know this is a long conversation and I really appreciate you hanging out with me for it. But I I plan on having more of these conversations. I plan on having a conversation with you in the near future about kind of just the very basics of energy or spirituality, whatever you want to call it. I get I kind of like using energy a little bit better myself simply because I haven't dipped my toes terribly deep into the spirituality, um, spiritual communities, all of that stuff. But what I've heard and learned is there's a lot out there that feels a lot like religion felt for me, where it feels a lot more designed to manipulate and control and get you to give your power away to some external source. And it's both are designed with all the best, purest intentions. But believe it or not, you can have the best and purest intentions and still end up in a world of hurt. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to take turns that lead you down someplace that isn't your path and then come back to your path. I do that. I've done that. But my hope is that however you find yourself, that one you actually do, and that you learn to distinguish between your soul and your body, um, and distinguish between that and your mind or your ego. And I'll talk. I'll put a little conversation up again some point in the future. These conversations are they're happening organically. They're happening as I feel really called to do it. And I know that there are some conversations that they're like building in me. They're brewing in me and they're going to come out at the right time. And so I hope that this conversation finds you at exactly the right time. If you see or feel any parallels or similarities in your story, drop me a little comment. If you don't, drop me a little comment. But I hope that um, you like and subscribe to my channel, as young and underpopulated as it is at the time of this video and posting, but it's going to grow right along with me. And I hope that you choose to grow as well. And maybe we can grow alongside each other as we walk each other home. Thank you very much for enjoying your favorite beverage and getting cozy with me. And I'll chat with you next time.